Welcome to Chicago International Organ Academy. I'm Philip Kleckner, Artistic Director and Founder, and this is Tabitha Moldenhauer, our Program Director. We are revisiting the Widor Toccata, the fifth movement from Widor's Fifth Symphony, again today, giving you additional ideas and suggestions for playing the piece more comfortably, more technically secure. We are using John Neer's edition, published by AR Editions. This is the most meticulously notated and researched edition that we know of. And here we are today with new topics.
We're starting about measure 33, actually a little bit before that, where the volume, the dynamic volume, is going down. And it's very carefully written so that it's mezzo forte in measure 31 and piano in measure 32. And then in measure 33, it's down to pianissimo, and it looks like you have to switch manuals.
Looks like you have to switch manuals, but in fact, if you have the resources at your organ to retire stops and to change registrations while you're playing with pistons and any other kind of manual or mechanical assists, you actually don't have to change manuals at all. When you get to measure 33, the R that's indicated there stands for récit, the French designation for the American and British division called the swell, and the pianissimo, the double P, indicates specifically that the swell boxes should be completely closed. But we can create that effect without leaving the great manual for the entire duration of the piece. If all of the manuals are coupled to the great, as they should be from the beginning, achieving this sound as if we were only playing on the récit can be accomplished by turning off all the stops on the great, uncoupling the choir, uncoupling the positif, uncoupling any other manuals you may have coupled to the great, to the grand orgue, by the time you get to measure 33.
So that's of course assuming that you have pistons, that you can couple manuals without them being so heavy that they become unplayable, or that you have registrants standing on both sides helping you out. If you don't have that and you're at an instrument with no pistons, then you do have to jump manuals.
It's pretty difficult to do it otherwise. If you do have to jump manuals, if you do have to change manuals at this particular point to get a softer sound that can be closed down under expression, then do so. And my recommendation is that you give yourself a little bit of time as you move from measure 32 to measure 33, just to be careful not to smudge any notes as you're making that manual change.
It does take a lot of practice to be able to do that, but I have done it. It is something that can be done, not a lot of fun. So if you don't have to do that, don't be a hero, don't do it.
Yeah, make it work if you possibly can by staying on the great and reducing your registration, uncoupling manuals, and for sure getting rid of anything that you have on the great manual for this section, measure 33 through measure 42.
And then as the dynamics start coming back up, what that means is in addition to opening the swell pedal, you are also adding more stops back on.
Right, beginning in measure 42, it shows you a crescendo, and a dynamics change, specific dynamic change in measure 45, continuing on this crescendo change in dynamics from forte to fortissimo, and then finally in measure 49, the triple forte. So just add back what you retired, what you took away gradually before the swell was sounding by itself, and restoring the full organ and maybe a little bit more, especially in the pedal, by measure 49.
Then we also have a few places that we are going to talk about some manual things that are a little bit tricky, and then also look at some pedal work for this one as well.
Good. Let's move ahead. Whether you have the near addition or not, the measure numbers should all be the same. So we'd like to now move to measure 63. The transition between measure 62 and measure 63. And this is another place that is better done by sharing notes between the middle staff and the upper staff, between the right hand and the left hand. The challenge here is to get the left hand up an octave and play all four notes that are written in that chord at the beginning of measure 63. So the challenge is to get from here to here in a very, very short period of time. So what I do in measure 63 is I take the top F of this, what's written in the middle staff and the left hand chords. I take those two Fs with my right hand on this first beat of measure 63. And then I shift up and take the full chord on the second beat of the measure with all with my left hand, etc., etc. So moving from measure 62 to measure 63 looks like this. And that should help you to make that smooth transition. Another place that bears commenting is in measure 66, where the left hand moves to a secondary manual. You've been playing on the great, on the grand orgue. What I want to suggest here is if you can possibly configure your registrations and your manual dispensation on the organ, that you have your secondary manual at this particular point above the grate. So either like this, if you can't move your grate manual down to the bottom, or if your grate manual is not on the bottom level, on the bottom keyboard, I'd like to suggest that you always reach your left hand above your right hand. I think it is difficult to execute this particular passage when you're trying to bring your left hand underneath your right hand. So this section would go like this. As soon as you reach the last beat of this measure 66, you've got an eighth rest for the left hand, move up to the other manual as soon as you possibly can, so that you're ready to go when it's time to play that note. And with luck, that will give you extra ease and comfort as you move along through the final couple of pages of the Widor Toccata. So one of the tricky part's about the end of the piece. Has to do with the placement of your feet on these Fs. The octave Fs, the high F, the low F, and the middle F at various places from measure 63 to the end. And what I do when I get to measure 63, I've just played the pedal in measure 62. While I'm still holding my left foot on the low F, I use that as an anchor and a stabilizer so I can find the high F with my right foot. From that point on, I bring my left foot up to the middle F that will be called for at the end of measure 66. And any pistons that I need to do to activate at that point between the measure 64 and measure 69, I do with one foot or the other, but again, I have stabilized myself all the way back at the beginning of measure 63. So I have this orientation and this foundation to move back and forth between these Fs. When I get to measure 69, I play the two Fs that are required. And as soon as I am finished with that, I move the left foot down before I move my right foot down. Then once the left foot is where it needs to be, I bring the right foot down to meet it. You play twice there. From measure 69 into measure 70. Measure 70 into 71. And at that particular point, again, I move back up even before. I've played the other low F with my left foot and then bring the right foot up at the end in this final position for the two Fs at the top of the pedal board. So the message is move one foot at a time from one F to the next so that you're not trying to move both feet together, which sometimes can be more difficult and more disorienting.
We hope you found this information on the Widor Toccata helpful. If you have any questions, please put those in the comments below. If you have any suggestions or other pieces that you would like to hear discussed, please put that in the comments below also. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for joining us, and have fun with the Widor Toccata.